Welcome back, Angry Bike Mechanic, post-ride maintenance. So this bike is recently returned from a ride. You can see the evidence of a shop sticker removed there, and it's a little dusty. And if you look there, you can actually see like a buildup of dust and oil on that rear shock. You can see a little bit of dust on the fork. You can see a good bit of dust on the seals. I'm going to show you what to do there. Notice our drivetrain's a little dusty, so show you what to do there. Now, a lot of people go crazy cleaning chains. Stop cleaning your chains. If you're going to clean your chain, clean it with your lube. And by that, I mean use your lube to clean it. Don't use a solvent, don't use chain cleaners. And generally, I'll just going to go through some stuff here and keep it really simple. Alright, what I want to do here is get that dust off the fork. So as long as there's no like thick buildup, just a soft cloth, and I like old shower towels, old washcloths are really good for wiping down your fork. Moderately clean is good. You don't want to be putting more oil residue on your fork stanchions. These are your stanchions, which collect more dirt on the next ride. But flossing the rag through the seats here, where the slider and the stanchions meet and the dust seal sits, wipe down those dust seals, make them nice and clean, and don't be afraid to wipe down this little O-ring. These things are literally just sag indicators. They are not critical. So do not replace a broken off O-ring with a zip tie. And if you do, remove it before you ride. All they do is collect oil, dirt, and scratch up your stanchions, reduce the life of your fork, and seals and everything. So don't use zip ties. Anyway, so there's that. And I'm going to do the same thing on the rear shock. Rear shock, I just want to wipe down that slider surface. This is the shock body, this part. You can wipe down the rest of the shock too, it won't mind. Make sure your adjusters function properly. This one doesn't. This one has been apparently flowing on a rack, or something has happened here. This should stop here, not go this far. And the same on the other side, something's happened here, so something's worn out. This is a bike that does not get ridden a ton, I know this. So that takes care of your suspension. Just wipe them down. Alright, the next step is to inspect your chain for damage. The easiest way to do this is to get an eagle eye view of your chain as it passes on the chainring. And just roll through the entire chain. And look for anything that looks like it's out of place. And trust me, if you see a link that's starting to bend, you're going to notice that. So do that. The next step is to apply the lube. Alright, as you're looking at this angle, you can see the drivetrain is a little dusty, no big deal. What I'm going to do is apply the lube of choice today. With that dust on there, I'm going to use something called T9. And so, just for the angle, I'm going to do this way. Spin the chain backwards. Now I'm doing this in a repair stand. This is the easiest way to do this. There are other ways to do it. But with the T9, I didn't have to go too crazy. T9, Bow Shield, Boeing Company. Really like this stuff. I've actually been able to put this on mid-ride and have it stay silent and not attract a bunch of goo and dirt in dusty environments. But anyway, the idea here is to just spin that a little bit more, get that worked in, and then we're going to wipe it off. And that's that. And that will clean off a lot of residue from the chain. Any other cleaning is unnecessary. Alright, so next, I'd like to get down the bottom part of the chain, and again, back cycle. Forward pedaling obviously gets the chain moving, or gets the rear wheel moving. You don't need that. So just back pedal if you can. One way to do this without a work stand is to lean the back tire at the edge of the door frame, something solid, or rock, balance the bike, and you can do this just fine. So getting this done in the field is easy. Sometimes I will hang the saddle off of a juniper tree because those are low enough. If I'm riding in the desert, I can do that just fine. Now, you can see that the chain is a little bit cleaner. It's a little bit shinier there. Now the next thing you want to do is look for any kind of damage on a tire that is concerning. Usually a slight sidewall tear is okay. If it gets deeper than that, it's gone through the belting, then you've got a problem or a potential problem, especially on road bikes where a lot of us are still using tubes. So you want to check your tire for lacerations. Not only are you checking your tire for lacerations, but any other kind of damage. And damage can look like a thorn, a porcupine quill, a cactus spine quill, stuff like that. Anything that leads you to wonder about the integrity of the tire. If you have questions about your tire, just replace it. I mean, it's not worth your safety to save 55, 60 bucks if it's questionable. And maybe get the second opinion of somebody else who might know tires a little bit better. What I'm going to do here is show you kind of demonstration, a little light demonstration of what to look for bearings. One of the first things I do is I grab a crank arm and I'll just make sure that that is still snug. These race face ones specifically don't get me going too well in the, I think it's called the X type, where it's about 24 millimeter spindle. This is more of a yeah, that's actually this version. The cinch ones you don't have to worry so much about. This style, I've had problems with this style in the past. One of my friends was riding with me. She clipped out to go over a rock. The crank arm came off the bike with the crank attached to her foot. So I like to check these, make sure it's snug. And on the monthly checkup, you check that bolt, make sure it's nice and tight. The next thing to do is actually grab the wheel and rock it side to side laterally against its natural state. And they shouldn't feel any looseness there or any knocking. And I'll do the same thing with the front. And it's nice and snug. If it's not snug, a lot of these hubs, they require an expert to tighten. But if you know that they're loose, take them in the shop. That way you can get it handled before your next ride. The next one is the rocking motion on the headset. So I grab the front brake and I rock the bike back and forth like this, except the front brake's engaged, so there's no rocking or no movement in the wheel. And what that does is it pushes the fork up into the frame if it's loose. And this one isn't loose, it's nice and snug, but again, you're just looking for that looseness, a light knocking. If that's there, then this needs to be snugged up. Now, I'll go over tightening this up in a different video, but if this is loose, it might be worth having someone who's experienced with this part of your bike go through the process of tightening it up and then fastening everything back into place. That could be dangerous if that remains loose because of an error you did while trying to correct the bearing problem here. So those are the 4 points of bearing check, and I think that is worthwhile for you to get used to doing those on this equipment these days. Sometimes that can change how your brakes are dragging or rubbing. It can also change how you're shifting. What I determined by grabbing this bike and just bring it down from the shelf is that the brakes have gone bad. So the master cylinders here is a SRAM problem, and they will replace them. So that is definitely no good. All right, last step. Last step is hang the bike. Now I've got these bikes spaced so I can hang the road bikes and mountain bikes all front wheel. I like the road bikes hanging front wheel just because it's convenient. Mountain bikes actually, hanging by the front wheel is great because the open bath oil in the fork works its way down to the seals, keeps things lubed up in this area, and that's actually important. Now people will argue against it. Well, it's bad for your brakes. Well, if your brakes don't work, when you hang this up like that, you probably need to get them bled. So hanging your bike like this is preventive maintenance. It also will help you know if there's air in your brakes. So basic stuff, and that's it. I didn't have to get into a crazy scenario where I spray down the bike and wash it and then dry it. Most of the time, bikes don't need to be washed the way we wash them. You hit the critical parts, you clean up the suspension, you clean up the chain with the lube that you're using. In this case, it was dirty enough that it needed that kind of cleaning. a little bit of dust. Normally my chains are pretty clean because the lube I do use. I use Squirt and some other lubes like that just kind of shed during the ride, and you get done with the ride and it's still pretty clean. You just put more on, hang it up, you don't have to wipe it off. So get familiar with how your lube works, but it is better, always better, to lube your chain after you ride and let it have time to cure and set than to put it on right before you ride. That whole notion, I don't know where that came from, it's old and it's mechanically incorrect. So don't, unless the lube says so, put your lube on after you ride, not before. Thanks for joining me, everybody. Angry Bike Mechanic. I just really want to say thanks for the few subscribers I've got, and hopefully I'll see some more subscribers come along. But anyway, I look forward to sharing more things about how to work on bikes, or a bunch of years of experience. So if you have questions, comments, please leave them below, and I'll try my best to answer them. You guys stay safe out there.